I am joined by Dr. Warren Farrell, who has given up his morning. It's 8 o'clock over there, is it, sir?
Yes, it is. It's not a problem. This is my second show this morning. So the other one was 2 hours before this. So
Oh, God bless you. Well, thank you very much for doing so. I know you've spoken to one of my previous colleagues before I joined this company years ago about the boy crisis, but I was tipped off to the fact that you've got the book just over your shoulder, Role Mate to Soulmate, coming out. And I wanted to speak to you for a few reasons because you've always been a sort of sober-headed voice that isn't necessarily on the American right during these contentious times, but also because I've been speaking for a long time about not only the impacts of relationships on demographics and the economy, but also the personal tragedy that lots of people are facing when they can't find a partner, or based on deteriorated relationship models as the divorce rate creeps up, they can't keep things together. They don't understand how to negotiate within a relationship. So, if you don't mind just giving a quick brief, what's the purpose of your new book?
when I started 30 years ago doing role mate to soulmate workshops, and the book emanates from my learning experiences over the last 30 years. But the incentive was seeing that people so oftentimes they when they fell in love, they thought they were soulmates, they thought they were really meant forever. And then somebody would make a suggestion that they thought would be an improvement, lead to an improvement in the relationship. And the person hearing the suggestion would consider it a criticism. Or they would go to a restaurant and somebody would recommend a restaurant or a movie. And so they get to the restaurant, and the somebody would say, "Gee, the service was bad. This soup was cold, or the atmosphere is not sufficient." And the person recommending that restaurant or that movie would feel criticized, even though the person who was making the comment thought she or he was making the comment about the restaurant or the movie. And so there was these enormous numbers of misunderstandings that started to make people feel not so passionate, not so in love. And so when I would ask people in the workshop, do you oftentimes do make suggestions that your partner interprets as criticisms? Almost everybody would say yes. And then I would ask them, "And do you feel that sometimes you or your partner will make a recommendation for a movie or a restaurant, and somebody else will be critical of it, and you feel a little bit criticized?" Yes. Well, do you feel that you are controlling? Oh, no, no, I don't think I'm controlling. Well, let me ask you this. If your partner was making criticisms at you, and they were suggesting that what was wrong with your recommendations, would you feel controlled? Oh, yes, I would. And so oftentimes people who don't recognize that their partner experiences them as controlling, when asked those types of questions, realize that they must be experienced as being controlling by their partner. And then I asked about complacency. These were what I call the four depleters of love: criticisms, controlling, the complaining, and the complacency. And I would ask them about, do you feel like oftentimes, when you first met your partner, she or he was really dressed up nicely, cleaned up, and so on. And when you go out to meet somebody at a Friday night or Saturday night, let's say, you check out your wardrobe in front of your partner, and you dress up real nicely. If you are a woman, usually you put on makeup, and you suddenly are worried about how you were looking for somebody else. But when you're around your partner, you oftentimes just dress very casually. Maybe you let some gas escape, or you burp, or you do things like that. And you're walking around either in pajamas or some sloppy clothing, and you don't clean up, etc. And so that oftentimes, now the good news about complacency is that it allows people to feel comfortable with themselves around their partner. The bad news is that oftentimes it makes the partner feel on some level that the only time you really care about how you look is for somebody else, not me. And so these issues have to be worked through. But what I found was that, when people at the beginning, people fell in love very deeply and passionately, and that was biologically natural. But as time passed on, sustaining love was biologically unnatural. So I started asking myself the question, why is sustaining love biologically unnatural? And it was because, to a large degree, because historically and biologically, when we heard a criticism, we saw potential enemy. And so our natural response is to get up the defenses so we're not defeated by the enemy, or conversely, kill the enemy before the enemy kills us. And the problem with that is that that's ingrained in us as our response to criticism, and that's fine for it's functional for survival. It's just dysfunctional for love. So I asked myself the question, is there any way around this? And so the 30 years of work on the role mate to soulmate was finding what a way around that could successfully be practiced and used. So at the beginning of my work, I would say to people, don't be defensive in response to criticism. Everybody would agree, but they went home after the workshop. And then the moment that criticism appeared, that wisdom disappeared. And so I realized it had to be more than words, it had to be a practice. And so I worked with couples on, I worked with myself to find whether there was a way of educating and training and guiding everyone to be able to provide a safe environment for their partner's feelings and fears and criticisms, no matter how negative that was, no matter how untrue it appeared to be to the person listening. And I did find that I was able to develop 6 mindsets that people meditated into before they heard the criticism. So once a week, I set aside something called a caring and sharing time. And I said that whatever your biggest concern is during the week, you'll have a chance to share that one biggest concern. But before you do, your partner is going to meditate into an altered state from the natural biological state of defensiveness into an altered state of associating your criticism with an opportunity to provide such a safe space for it that your partner feels safe as opposed to in danger of retaliation. And as a result of feeling safe, feels more loved by you. And as a result of feeling more loved by you, feels more love for you. And so that became one of the mindsets, what I call a love guarantee. And so before you heard your partner's criticism, you began to meditate into understanding that no matter how distorted it was, providing that safe space would make your partner feel more secure and more loved. And then there were 5 other mindsets that I had people meditate into to alter their natural biological defensiveness. And so that was, so then I have people put that on the calendar every week. They do that, they devote 2 hours per week to that. And then that left 166 hours in the week. And that during that other 166 hours, I had them develop a conflict-free zone. So somewhere during the week, probably what your perception of your partner criticizing you would come up. And so because you had an experience of being able to be heard fully, no matter what you said or how you said it in the caring and sharing time, you had the possibility of visualizing when you were criticized, felt criticized by your partner, you had the possibility of visualizing that you could either respond now, and there'd be about a 95% guarantee that it would escalate into a big argument, or alternatively, you could wait until that caring and sharing time and share whatever you're feeling. And then your part with a 100% guarantee that your partner would provide a safe environment for that. And so that was just the beginning of the many strategies I develop in the book to have people maintain that conflict-free zone for the rest of the week. And those are just 2 of what I call 23 love enhancements that I developed for the Role Mate to Soulmate book.
It sounds like a almost very pragmatic updated version of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And that's something that both myself and my fiance, who I am blessed to say have not actually had any severe conflicts. We just sort of get along rather ergonomically. Touch wood, stays that way. That we both read, and I think the reason we haven't fought is because we acknowledge something that is lacking in modern dating discourse, and that is sexual difference. That is that
Mhm.
uh, women prefer to have things said one way and men prefer to have things said another way or done one way. And it's not that you're somehow losing by altering your behavior to accommodate that person's needs. You're not compromising. And I don't know how online you are, Warren, but modern online dating discourse certainly doesn't seem to be that. In my perception, a lot of these new podcasts and forums are around seeking certainty for people that are concerned because they already have been or don't want to be in future about being hurt by the opposite sex, and so see how the opposite sex does behaviors differently to them, as rather than something they should accommodate, as irrational or insensitive or the like. So do you think that is my read on that correct? Do you think a lot of this is people being unable to understand sexual differences born out of a desire not to be hurt, and so they're going down it the wrong way? What sort of conflicts have you seen emerge from the couples that you were speaking to?
First, there's a great many men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Whenever you talk to an academic about that, they go poo-hoo. But when you talk with people who are people who have had children, they're looking at each other and going, yeah, yeah, that's right, that's right. That's what happens with us. And so there's this enormous gap between those two experiences. But m most couples have a men are from Mars, women are from Venus difference. However, some have it reversed, and gay couples have the exact same problems that straight couples have around the issues of feeling criticized by their partner. So no matter what the differences or similarities are, the great majority of people often feel, relationships are extremely complex. And, with thousands of decisions that need to be made, and especially if there are children, and especially if there are blended families. Blended families are really challenging to accommodate. So what I wanted to develop was no matter what the theory was, whether you were married or the experience was, whether you were married to somebody who's a Mars or a Venus, and it falls into those natural categories, which are the most common, um, or not, that you'll have hundreds of challenges in a complex long-term relationship, and those relationships tend to deteriorate if you don't feel you will be completely heard, and you start walking on eggshells and sort of waiting for the right time or the right moment to bring something up. And then you fear that if you say something a little bit that your partner experiences as distorted, they really won't be listening. They'll be doing something that I call self-listening, which is listening to themselves provide, manufacture or develop a response while you are talking. And so the real issue is to know how to first let your partner know she or he is appreciated. So knowing, and most people say, like, to me, they'll say, "Oh, Warren, your book was great." Well, that's very nice. Or, they'll say to somebody at Thanksgiving time, "Oh, my partner is a great cook." And that feels nice. But I teach people how to appreciate at 7 levels of specificity. So let's say you hear that you're a great cook. And so I'm working with each couple to say not just you're a great cook, but to ask the question, what makes you a great cook? And to be able to say something like, but how did you get the skin on that turkey so crisp? Now the person is feeling seen, and they're also feeling curiosity, and they're also feeling that they are being asked to reveal something that the other person doesn't know. And that feels very much like they're an opportunity to be seen and the center of attention. Who doesn't like that? The And then the next is going from the skin on the turkey being crisp to saying something like, that the dressing was so moist. How do you get the skin on the turkey so crisp combined with the dressing being moist? You'd think that the dressing might dry up. How do you do that? And then maybe and the spices were really outstanding. And it seems like there were herbs. Maybe with that parsley and sage and rosemary and thyme or some other Simon and Garfunkel spice. And and so you start asking these questions that go deeper and deeper. So I train each couple to work, have the art and the discipline of appreciating each other each week. The discipline is you set aside like 10, 15 minutes of an evening, say every Wednesday. That's the discipline to say to your partner two or three things that you appreciate about each other. And then the other partner to say the reverse. And to be not just general in appreciation, but specific in appreciation. Then before the caring and sharing time, I also I do what I call a caring and sharing sandwich. The first thing that happens in the caring and sharing time is your partner appreciates you at multiple levels of specificity 2 times. Then they share the one concern. And at the end of the caring and sharing time, the partners come back and end with appreciations. So when they get ready to enter that caring and sharing time, they're not just anticipating a criticism, they're anticipating 4 specific appreciations and one concern that they now have. They are now practicing over and over again how to alter their natural defensiveness and be able to provide a fully supportive environment for their partner.
I think the point about being dynamic and not pre-scripting a response to someone's questions or points of concerns is very important because I've always been I've always, when I do sort of interviews like this, and thank you very much for doing so, I always set out a series of general points, but then you have to be ergonomic to what the other person is interested in and attentive. Otherwise, of course, who's going to want to sacrifice their time to talk to you if they don't listen? And I usually do that by plumbing the depths of someone else's work. And I was fortunate enough, actually, to have attended the last ARC where you were speaking about these kinds of issues, particularly the necessary role for fatherhood in the lives of girls and boys. And I wanted to raise this sort of point with you as perhaps a contention to what's been put forth in the book here. So here you're talking about sort of negotiated settlement, doing the work, as my friend Mary Harrington would say, rather than being concerned about playing into a particular stereotype of a particular role. She recently interviewed Lauren Southern, who was a anti-feminist activist for quite a while, whose marriage broke down, and she turned around and said that my marriage failed because I had learned how to be a wife from online forums and what I thought I had to do, because there was no model that I had inherited as to how to live out being a wife and a mother, and that fell through. And at your ARC talk, you said something akin to, we need more flexible gender roles, to a gender liberation movement, to liberate ourselves from the rigidity of the past. So my question would be, yes, to we can't just perform out roles that we expect of us and expect negotiation not to be a problem. But what do you say to people who go, well, I've got no foundation from which to negotiate, and living up to these roles and expectations provides me some structure. Why would I want to abolish gender roles when they're the only thing I know? Thank you for watching that clip from Tomlinson Talks. If you liked that and you would like to see more, you can get the full 90-minute show every week on a Wednesday afternoon, live from 3 p.m., only on lotuseaters.com, and all of the other content that my colleagues produce behind the paywall for as little as £5 a month. Thank you very much for supporting us, and I hope to see you there. Until next time, goodbye.